There's one of our past presidents, now deceased, Dr. Orr. In fact, he was our president when Surrey Hills actually shifted to Moorabbin and became the Steam Locomotive Society of Victoria. He was the foundation president. It's a 5-inch gauge Pacific that he has. We're back at Geelong again, and it looks like either hall's been under repair, and as you can see, he's stripped for action there. Now we're up at Ballarat on a small private track of Bill Troughton's, which runs round his workshop. Bill was a very, very keen live steamer. There's young Tim again, Fireman Tim. He's pumping water into the boiler from a hand pump in the tender. We call that an emergency pump, John. Normally the 3.5-inch gauges have an axle-driven pump which can only put water in when you're running. So hence we have an emergency pump. We do have steam injectors on the smaller gauges, but being so small they can be a little bit temperamental. That little locomotive is only a tiny one, pulling quite a large fellow. Quite a small locomotive, John, but a full load.
Just like that.
Now we're back at Geelong again with David Hempel, and these particular shots you'll see that the posts are a lot lower, hence it's put grade in, and that'll be the upgrade where David's going there now. So you had to give it a little bit more throttle and ease off coming down the other side. You can see the signals at work. Because we've got a blind corner there, John, and if someone had stalled round the corner, it could be a little bit of a catastrophe trying to pull up. There's a nice shot of the S-Class.
The wheels tend to slip on the rails at any time?
They can, John, yeah, especially after a few locomotives have been around and they've dropped bits of spots of oil on the track. But usually there's someone wiping them down, but they can slip quite easily. Looks like Vin's doing a test run there with all the colluding off and no cab. Yes, he's doing a few adjustments there. There's a little bit of running in time required, John. There's all little bugs that you have to get out after you've finished it, fine-tuning it.
Is that painted or is it?
That's unpainted there, John. There's cleating, what we call cleating, to go over that. That gets painted, not the actual boiler itself. There's a sheet covering goes over the boiler. We're back up at Surrey Hills. Mont Albert Road it was. I think it was number 274, if memory serves me right.
Must have been a good sized block.
Yes, he squeezed. He managed to squeeze it in round the clothesline.
That's a good shot, isn't it?
Yes, that's a little locomotive called Titch, and I think that was Ken Constable's Titch. Bill Thomas again. Fellow by the name of Fred Saunders. That particular locomotive is a Pamela. Again, another LBSC design. Young driver Tim posing there. You can see this was a drought time in Geelong, John.
Yes.
Back in the early 60s it was, when we weren't allowed to water the lawns.
Let's hope we're finished with it now.
Yes, it's been a worrying time, hasn't it, down here? With water restrictions. Down the long straight, that's a down gradient.
This music matched in nicely coming down the grade.
Very nice. There's a nice action shot, John.
Yes, great, isn't it?
It looks like, I think the driver must be driving no hands.
It might be over the shoulder shot.
Or over the shoulder shot.
Yeah, I think it's over the shoulder.
Yeah.
It's going off the road.
Yes.
Another flowers.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh, there's
that's
another.
good. That's
Yes.
brilliant. How did he do that?
He must have leant well out, John, I think.
Gee,
There's the driver busily on the tender pump, emergency pump, putting water into the boiler. Billy Troughton from Ballarat with his Maisie.
what sort of weight are we looking at in these engines?
About 100 pounds, John. The 3.5s, they're about 100 pound, 110 pound.
They need that to keep them on the rails.
Yes, oh yes. This is Surrey Hills again, with a club run day.
Imagine trying to make wheels for these things.
Oh yes,
Gosh.
that looked like John Campbell driving Ivy Hall. John was one of the past presidents of the Steam Locomotive Society. He's still quite keen. He comes to conventions. An old Virginia, Casey Jones. This was a locomotive built by Billy Newman. And this is just a lineup of some of the visiting locomotives on our club run day. Yes, this is a club run day with visitors from Melbourne and Ballarat. Dan tells me this particular fella driving here is one of the engineers in the district here for the old CRB, the district engineer. John Taylor from Ballarat driving Bill Troughton's Maisie. And there's Vin driving one of the blue bottles, Billy Newman's blue bottle. One of them was a very interesting locomotive. He had two types of valve gear. One side was Stephenson's and the other side was Walshart's. He was that kind of fella that did a lot of experimenting, and it still ran beautifully. Matthew Flinders on the steaming bay. This is one of our members from Melbourne, Frank Carrig, putting water into his boiler, and an action shot there of signals. There's young Tim of a Sunday morning putting in the piece across the front path, John. It was well thought out. Pieces of track, as you can see, there's a piece missing there that gave access to the side gate without tripping over the track, and there's the small piece that goes in across the front path. So that kept Mrs. O'Toole happy that she didn't have to straddle railway track going to the line, or visitors coming. It was well thought out. Ooh, ouch. That must have been hot, Tim. That's Tim's youngest brother. Behind him, young Dan O'Toole, named after his dad.
Dan worked in the business too, didn't
Yes, he did. Yes. There was Maury, who we were talking about the other day, a cousin, Vin, and Dan. They were the three in the shop. Then later on, when Vin passed away, Dan's son Chris went into the business as well.
Oh, yes.
Now we're over at South Australia to the South Australian Society of Model and Experimental Engineers. This was their convention. Now there's Maury Turner, who we saw earlier on his Red Devil. You can see the beautiful little traction engine he has built.
Yes, I do.
And you can see the fingers missing on the left hand. Oh, he did a hand signal there, must have been busy traffic. This little traction engine's been featured up at Lake Goldsmith in the early days, and we'll see some shots of that later, John, up at Lake Goldsmith. Yes, a remarkable piece of machinery.
The camera's done a great job.
Now this is the South Australian Society's track at SASMEE Park, it was known as. A wonderful setup. They had, in those days, had a 7-car racing track. That's Fred Pascoe on the bowler hat, with 2 of his locomotives being driven by a young lad, and Fred aptly named them Wally and the Major.
Looked a bit like Winston Churchill.
He did. Here's Vin with an old Geelong fellow there, Jim Burnell, who came across with us to the convention. You can see a glimpse of the boat pond there. That track and grounds are still there. They've since added a ground level track since these shots were taken. Frank Carrig from Melbourne and Billy Troughton as passenger.
Tiny one, isn't it?
Yes, a little tank locomotive. Here's another shot of Wally and the Major. You'll notice that there's only one driver. There's remote control, but not actually remote, John. It's long rods that operate the regulator on the forward locomotive. This is Murray Mitchell with his blue Britannia. Murray now lives in Melbourne. He was working in Adelaide at that time. and he had the pleasure of opening the track with the locomotive out at Bulla. There's Mrs. Richards and Neil Campbell, two Sydney visitors. There's Billy driving Frank's logo now. Again, Murray Mitchell. That's Vin driving Ivy Hall. There's Claude Miller and Vin O'Toole having a bit of a chat. That's train coming through there is on the actual Melbourne line. Now here we see the big Pacific locomotive again with the Baker valve gear. That was Len Peckham and Bill Richards. There's Vin driving again with yours truly as passenger.
Young fella.
Yes. You can see the suburban tracks on one side and the Melbourne track on the other, so it was quite a nice setting to have the full-size locos driving past, and often give us a toot as they go past. It looks like Neil driving his loco there. Yes, that's a nice shot of it coming round Wally and the Major with a tidy load on the back. Well, there's some load there, John.
Right, well.
I think there's 44, I think it might have been, someone counted at the time. Coming up the gradient there.
Gee whiz.
That's some effort.
That is a big load for a little engine, isn't it?
It is so. And it looked like Vin O'Toole's guard.
What you call the power of steam.
Yes. Alan Frankham. Alan was a very keen member. He wasn't a builder, but he enthralled the kiddies during the conventions. He used to have a doll in a case. He was a ventriloquist, and he'd keep the kids in awe and laughing all the time. This is just a Sunday morning shot in Adelaide, King William Street. And there at Easter time, that's the Torrens River. The brewery nearby used to put on a lovely Easter display. You'll see some shots of that later. Now we're down at Adelaide Airport of Sunday morning. A bit of free time, and that's Ken Hall's daughter.
You have a national association and information coming?
We do, yes. There's Vin and Ken again. Yes, we have an association that's been formed called the Australian. I'll get it right in a minute. We have two actual committees. One is the AMBSC that looks after boilers, inspection of boilers, and the other one is the Australian Association of Live Steamers.
And how document come out from these to members?
All the time, upgrading.
Monthly?
Not actually, no. Mainly annually after a boiler code meeting. There might be some amendments come out, and that's sent out to all the boiler inspectors. Each club has 2 or 3 boiler inspectors to maintain the the boilers, that they're in good safety condition. Oh, looks like Vin's bruising up for the camera. There's Vin going to drive the big 5-inch gauge. There's yours truly as a passenger. There's a good shot of the Baker valve, the southern valve gear. As in those days, a 5-inch gauge locomotive was quite large, John. Over the years, 7 1/4 has crept in, and even the 5-inch gauge now looks small as compared to the 7 1/4-inch gauge. But in those days, that was a very large locomotive.
What was the fuel used in those days?
Back in those days, that probably would have been briquettes. Crushed up briquettes, but now we use a treated briquette called char. It's dried out briquettes, and there's not as much ash, that yellow ash that we used to get with briquettes. Here's the Easter shot on the Torrens River. That's done by the local brewery, and as you can see, it's Easter 1963.
Has there been any move towards alternative fuels?
In America, the live steamers in America seem to experiment quite a bit with oil and with gas, propane.
Oh, yeah.
They've done a lot more experimenting than us.
Yeah.
That's quite a nice shot again of the evening at night time. Very spectacular. And there's flowers actually in the Torrens River, all lit up. And as you can guess, we're climbing through the Adelaide Hills after the convention. And there's a group car from New South Wales heading home.
You can tell the era.
Yes, you can with with those model Holdens. And Murray Bridge.
It's been a good camera this year.
Now, as you can see, we're up to Lake Goldsmith, and this would have been again in 1963, so people that visit there now will see a big difference to what it was like then.
Where's Lake Goldsmith again?
Just down from Beaufort, between Skipton and Beaufort, John. They have 2 rallies a year, and it's got quite big now. It's very, very big. It's become very, very popular. That's George with the pipe in his mouth. That's George Mulcahy.
I think Normie Rob and his dad used to go to this.
Oh, they would have, undoubtedly, John. Yes, the Geelong group would be visiting there. Our Toole boys having a drive on the steamroller.
Brilliant colour.
Isn't it beautiful? Yeah. There's a typical shot of George with the pipe in the mouth. He's since passed away a long time ago now. Now there's Maury's little traction engine again being featured at Lake Goldsmith.
How do they make those wheels?
That's all fabricated. A lot of hard work getting them bent and shaped the right way.
I mean, they've even got diagonal treads on them.
Yes, and even miniature rivets. The beauty of steam, John. You can see the motion in action, can't you?
Yes.
Different to internal and combustion engines.
It's been a lot of work and a lot of good feeling about creating these sort of things too.
Yes,
Gosh.
yes. That's been driving, I think, Surrey Hills locomotive on a portable track. All the lads sitting in the wood basket.
Yes.
This particular portable belongs to the Hall family. It's an unusual one. As you can see, the boiler is on an angle, John. I think something like 30 degrees
Yes. Yeah.
off the horizontal.
Yeah.
Very, very unique portable, very small one. Now here's Dr. Orr at the opening of the third rail at his private track at Hayington Place in Toorak. And there's David Hempel. You can see the ribbon across the track and the third rail. Following up there, I think, is John Campbell. Now that fellow's with the tank locomotive was another Surrey Hills member. John Campbell. Freddie Saunders.
Notice the white balance change a moment ago?
Yes, I did.
Yes. Everything's white now.
Yes. I think this was coming back from Lake Goldsmith, and as they're going through Batesford, John, a full-size loco going over Batesford Bridge.
That's a good shot, isn't it?
It is. Yes, I take it he'd be fair way from the track there too, from the bridge.
It's very high up, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, quite a long goods train.
Mm.